And we're live.
Welcome to Keepers of the Word. Thank you for coming back and joining us. You're here with Mike, Ron, and James.
Hello. So tonight we are going to be talking about giants.
Do you have any shout-outs that we want to give out?
Shout-outs. I want to give shout-outs to my usual, all the metaphysical swords out there. We got Green Man and Crooked Path, Points of Light, Phrase Hermetic Supplies, Dragon in the Rose, everybody else that I'm missing because there's a lot of people out there.
What about you, Mike?
I want to say thanks to Røde and Sweetwater, our sponsors.
We appreciate them for this equipment to be able to do what we do. That's
Correct.
for sure.
So, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead and finish.
No
what you were
worries.
gonna say.
So tonight we have special production here. So we're going to talk about giants. So giants, Nephilim, Anakim, Rephites, all kind of specters, all the different characteristics, ranks, lineages, and stories of whom they are and what they did.
What is the Rephaim?
The Rephaim are a specific type of, or a lineage of giants. So you got different families, large families. You have the Rephaims, you have specters, you have the Anakim, all kind of stuff like that. So they kind of get broken up pretty much like who lived where. These people dwell in this area. So you had Rephaims in a certain area, and for biblical terms or in biblical areas.
So you were talking earlier about how the different lores and, within the Norse and all of that type of stuff had theirs. Would the different giants have been in those different areas for those people to tell their specific stories of the giants, or
the older back that you go, yes. So you start seeing that.
So I think with what, to echo what you're saying, is say Norse mythology and Greek mythology. They one had Titans, the other had Jotun.
Correct.
Right? So would they be included? Do you think they would be included in that lore?
Yeah, because the world has one story to tell. There's one planet. This was a planetary story that was going on. So when people talk about this and talk about, in biblical times, and they think only in the biblical areas, and that was not true. This is happening all over the world. This is a world event that's taking place. This is why this is echoing through our cultures and our lineages and our stories, people around the world. You have people talking about giants all over the planet that never had any communication with each other or extremely little. But they have the same stories or something very, very similar, just in their own versions. Like over here in California, we may be talking about some event in a California terms or something. In the East Coast, they may be talking about it, in an East Coast version of that. But yeah, these guys were everywhere. This is why I kept seeing these guys in all my studies as a child growing up, and became obsessed with them and started reading about them and studying them, tracing them throughout history and cultures and stuff like that. So
I think, before we get into that part, we could probably talk about Norse mythology and Greek mythology. So in Norse mythology, we have Ymir, a giant so massive the gods constructed an entire world from his corpse, which is Midgard, which is technically where we're at right now.
correct, Earth.
So there were giants bigger than him. Skrymir? Yes, Skrymir.
Mm-hmm.
You want to say it right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I believe Thor spent a night sleeping inside one of his gloves, and he tells Thor that when he gets to Utgard, he will meet giants who are still bigger. Wow.
There was a lot. So, you know, when they talk about the frost giants and stuff like that Thor would fight.
Not to mention Thor and Odin are half giant.
They are.
Right.
They are. But they are smaller versions. So this is where you get the smaller giants that still have the same might as the same bigger sized giants. But these were the demigods, this little superheroes that started running around that were like a human size almost, bigger in stature than us, probably about 7 to 9 feet tall, running around doing stuff, superhero stuff. Go Marvel, huh?
So if we go to Greek mythology, you have Kronos and
Gaia, ribs and all that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's technically the same thing if you look at it from that perspective.
It is. Even Kronos' ribs. Like if you know, there's, you know, stories of Hercules going and finding these ribs, you know, in his journeys, and they were massive. He didn't realize what they were because he was walking amongst them by his rib cages. So pretty freaking cool, man.
So Alchemist wrote, many lore, many experiences, just like the story of Beowulf, also as explained in the Book of Eaters of the Dead by Triton.
Right. So, you know, Beowulf, you know, you have a superhero figure, an avatar figure, demigod figure who goes around and does feats like Hercules. You have, and also Gilgamesh. So Gilgamesh would be the first one.
Yeah.
So very, very similar. They all do the same thing. They combat with giants. They are giants. And a lot of them question how much giant are they? You know, what percent, like Gilgamesh is. You want to know, what part God am I? Would I live forever? Or will I just live for a long time and then I die? You wanted to find out. So that's the whole journey of Gilgamesh, is figuring out what part God that he is, or what part giant.
Interesting.
Really, really cool.
I just want to jump in real quick and say what's up to Alchemist. He's one of our VIP viewers.
Watch out.
For all of you viewers out there right now, we do give statuses to our people, and so, you know, Alchemist's a VIP. He's been around since the first show. He's always active.
Yep.
So thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
very
sir.
much.
Thank you.
So along in the chat, you guys can go ahead and ask questions. We'll address them as we're going along, but, you know, when we have our topic going and running,
Correct.
and we'll try to get to them.
All right. So we're going to jump into giants. Who are they? What are they?
Yeah, what are they?
What are they? So basically, the giants that we're talking about are the Nephilim, are going to be the mixed hybrid from the Watchers mixing with the daughters of man. And we find this in Genesis 4:6. Basically, they are roaming around. Genesis 6:1 through 2, and it came to pass when man began to multiply upon the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. So this leads us to where they were like, hey, this is a really cool idea that's going on. We really enjoy these daughters of men. So they were worried that each one would tell on each other back at home and get in trouble for what they're doing down on terrestrial planes. So they devised this plan. This watcher by the name of Shemyaza basically says, hey, I would love to go and partake in that, but I feel as though you're going to tell on me if I do it. So why don't we all go do it at the same time? We make a pact, a deal. And so they went to,
guilty.
Right. So if I'm guilty, you're all guilty.
Yeah.
Right. So what ends up happening is they go to Mount Hermon. What is Mount Hermon? Mount Hermon is a place in the book of Enoch, in Enoch 6, where the Watchers made the bad pact to descend to earth to take the daughters of man for themselves as wives. And this is where everything just goes downhill, basically.
Mistake number one.
Yeah, you know,
daughters of man.
let's go party, you know? So they want to go down and hang out and partake of the fruits, basically. And that's where they got in trouble, you know? And if you guys read the book of Enoch by R.H. Charles, a 1917 version, it's pretty cool. Shemyaza basically just talks about going down there, and he says, come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men and beget us children. So this is where we get the Nephilim from. And the Nephilim gets broken up into different groups, which we're going to talk about tonight. What else? So we have the Watchers. We got Shemyaza. Just to name a few, we have Shemyaza, who is a leader of the Watchers. We have Asa, who's the angel who objected to Enoch's transformation into Metatron. He's pretty popular. People should know who he is if you guys are into Metatron. We have Azazel. Everybody knows Azazel from Hollywood and the movies and Fallen the movie, which is a really great movie. He's the angel who later opposes Enoch's transmutation as well, and he's the one who also taught humans how to make knives, swords, shields, women makeup, and a bunch of alchemical things and stuff like that. Sariel taught humankind about the courses of the moon, and at one time regarded as forbidden knowledge, esoteric knowledge. Wink, wink. Yekwan, his name is He Shall Rise, was the ringleader who first tempted the other watchers into having sexual relations with humans. So basically, Yekwan here went down, dabbled, was like, this is the bomb. You guys are going to love this. Come check this out. So he's the one who kind of, the ringleader who really messed up everything. But Shamyaza, being the leader, was like, all right, I'm going to get on this, but I should take the lead on this. And if anyone's to blame, it should be me.
So we have a special guest today. I want to introduce him. He's ready to jump on. His name is Brother Joe Martinez, Pastmaster.
Hey, Joe, can you hear us?
Yep. How do I sound?
Amazing.
Sound great.
Of course I do. What's going on, brother?
Awesome.
What's
Thank
up?
you for coming on the show. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Where do you hail from, Joe?
I currently have roots in the Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia area. I've been living here for the last few years. Grew up in New York and was in the Army for a bit and traveled around a bit, but we finally set up chalks here in Northern Virginia, and that's where we've been since 2007, I think. So
Very beautiful out there.
indeed.
Awesome.
So we're talking about the big people.
The big people.
What's your opinion on this?
So I know we talked about this before we started the podcast, and so I definitely have read the different books of Enoch, even though we can't really call them the books of Enoch, right? That's their modern name. They really are just different collections of scripture that have been cobbled together by modern researchers and categorized into different books based on their date, right? So definitely have poured into those quite a bit. Some of my favorite apocryphal reading, and I don't get to read it in church on Sunday, obviously, but yeah, they definitely touch on the story of those quote unquote bigger people that you brothers were talking about before I jumped on, and I was being nosy and listening the whole time. So, but it definitely covers the Nephilim, the Anakim somewhat, and the Rephaim ever so gently, right? Like they're referenced in passing more than anything else,
Right. Or location,
in the canonical scriptures. So, but we find more information about them in rabbinical texts and the Talmud and some pseudepigraphal Christian books and things like that. So there's definitely more to them, outside of what you get when you go to your service on Saturday or Sunday. So
for sure. Yes.
It's not like they're going to expand on that.
No.
Right?
No.
So in expansion, can you expand on some of those?
The Nephilim?
Yes.
Yeah, we can break down. So just to quote some of the famous ones that you can find in the Bible. So they are in the Bible. They're kind of hidden. They do try to word it or glance over them, but I went and handpicked out every spot that they actually speak about giants because I'm that kind of guy. I'm picky. So we can talk about Arba. Arba is pretty damn cool. Arba means giant, strength, and cube, or the number 4. And Arba basically means the name 4. It's a symbol of great strength and stability, characterized by the square and the cube. He was the father of Anak. So Anak comes along. His name means the long neck giant or the collared neck, which is kind of cool because he's the son of Arba. When you get the collared neck, this is where we get references to them being enslaved for building. This is where we get, you have Solomon talking about using them, the jinn and all these other people that were men of mighty renown. They had super great strength. And they would use them as like forklifts and stuff like that. And they were actually enslaved. Now, a lot of people at that time, they would get together and try to enslave some of these giants as workhorses. We had the Philistines doing this forever to fight the Hebrews.
How did they do that? How did they get away with it, though?
So I can tell you.
Okay, please,
Okay, all
yes.
right. So
This is
we have an
interesting.
example. I can't quote off the top of my head right now, but you have the brothers of David. So after David kills Goliath, David's like 4 brothers or 5 brothers are like, hey, man, we got to go kill the other giants, his brothers, because they want revenge. It's really funny because the first one they go and they try to get, he's a Rephaim. I forget his name. I think I may have it in here. He's like, oh, you guys killed Goliath? Good. I didn't like that guy anyways. He has no care. He's like, I just want to be here with my sheep. Leave me alone. I don't want nothing to do with you guys. This is the valley of the Rephaim. This is my valley. Stay out of my valley. So what they did to kill this poor guy, I think he was like 9 feet tall. So they would develop these spears that were very long. And they would get a group of men and they would stab the giants on each side and basically put them into the ground so he couldn't move. And then they had one really fast guy that was really good with a sword that would run up from behind and cut off the head of a giant. So this was a team effort. They used a group of people, like 10 or more. And they would sit there. Imagine, he's trying to rip these stakes out of the ground because they're pinning him all the way around. It's really pretty horrible. But David and his brothers went around killing the last known, at least what they thought was the last known giants in the areas that they were around for no real reason except for some very other conspiracy theories about why they were doing that and stuff like that. So, poor guy. So yeah, then we got Hermon, one of the great sons of Anak, whom Caleb and the Israelites spies saw in Mount Hebron when they went to explore the Promised Land. This is when they came back and they tell Moses, we were like grapes in the eyes of the giants. This is a very famous scene. Most people don't know, Moses had 2 of them killed. And the third guy goes, they asked the third guy, what'd you see? Oh, they were fine. They were normal people. We can go there. He didn't want to die. So basically it was treason what they were committing, causing fear and dissent amongst the people. So they had them executed before they went into land of Canaan and took over. And then real quick, we have Shasai, which means 6. Mercy, flax, was a clan of Anakim living in Hebron, named for a son of Anak in the Bible. The clan was driven out by Caleb, again, and the tribe of Judah. This is when they went into Canaan. And the last one is Talmai, the son of Anak. His name in the Bible refers to the number of a minor people. So they had their own clans, they were thriving, they were living with humans, interacting with humans, dealing trade, all kind of cool stuff.
So Joe, do you have anything to add to what James just put out there?
No, James kind of hit a lot of the big points. I mean, they do show up numerous times. I think you mentioned the very first time in Genesis 6.
1 through 2,
they're actually referenced in verse 4. That's the first time, and that's where the knocking boots part comes in, right? Where, yes,
nitty gritty.
The sons of God are which people purport to be most likely angels.
Right.
It doesn't call them that in most of your modern translations, right? They say sons of God.
No.
Translating it to angels, and then the Nephilim show up, but to your point, the Nephilim show up quite a few times. I think it's in Numbers.
Yes, a lot numbers.
Yeah, they show up the most there, talking about their height and their size and things like that. And then the verse that you were talking about, I think you said grapes. I thought it was something to the effect of that they appeared to be like grasshoppers to them.
Grasshoppers, yeah.
Yeah. That's how I remember it.
I'm sorry. Yes, it's grapes, and they brought back grapes, but they said we looked like grasshoppers in their eyes. And the weaver beam and all that stuff. His bed is why is a weaver beam.
Yep. But you're right. Moses wasn't super cool with most of their answers. So
no.
Yes, a couple of them died. But then they show up in, I think, Deuteronomy a bit more, and now we're talking about the Anakim, right? Or the sons of Anak, and that's where they get their name from. But they are, again, those, depending on what books you read, they could be, the sons of Anak, who was potentially a Nephilim, or it could be just another race of that hybrid human divine demigod, I guess you could call it. I heard the discussion earlier when you were likening them to other demigods in other cultures. And that makes a little bit of sense. You have, Heracles or Hercules, who is demigod, right? He's half god and half mortal. and he's kind of stuck in this limbo between both. And there's many other examples in other cultures of these demigod archetypes where they're half divine and half mortal themselves. But your traditional biblical texts don't ever go out and say that, right?
Oh, no way.
That's kind of against the status quo
Mm-hmm.
of the story, right? To
Mm-hmm.
have these in between forms. But if you read other rabbinical texts, or if you get into the Talmud, especially the
Midrash.
Babylonian Talmud, there's a lot more story there, right? That just didn't make it into scripture. But I have my own opinions on how official scripture formed.
Of
which
course.
I'm not gonna get into.
You're right. Right. That's a whole nother episode. So we have so many different things, topics, so that was the Watchers. And we went over to Watchers, Mount Hermon. What else we could talk about? We always have to bring up the flood, because the flood was a huge portion of the Nephilim and what happened to the giants and stuff like that. Most people don't know about the flood except for the stories that we see on Hollywood or TV, the cartoons that we see as a kid if you're raised Catholic or in Christian church. Just some pointers out there. It rained for 40 nights and for 40 days. Pretty cool. The flood lasted 150 days before the waters actually receded. These are all just straight from the Bible. How old was Noah when the flood happened? In Genesis 7:6, and Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth. So just nice little tidbits of the flood and just little things that people don't normally get to hear about, or they miss or glance over it.
Oh, real quick, we got a question from Urukan G. As the sons of God created with the daughters of men, do you believe that those genetics are imprinted on modern human DNA?
So when people talk about this part, they talk about us having the extra pinky, the extra 6 fingers. They're reported to have 6 fingers and 6 toes, which kind of run through other mythologies that talk about them, which is kind of weird, and also how people have the little tail at the end. If they're born, they have extra appendages and stuff like that.
Vestigial tail. Yep.
Yeah. And they talk about extra rows of teeth and stuff like that, or extra molars, believe it or not. So when people have extra molars, they say that person supposedly could have some piece of that DNA. I actually have extra molars myself. My dentist flipped out and said that he's never actually come across anybody that had extra molars, and that I was an anomaly. I'm like, great, pay me now.
And the 6 digits is actually a lot more common than you realize.
Right, it's out there. I've actually met somebody with 6 toes on each foot.
They call them 6 toe?
No. Well, but every time he had flip flops on, everybody would always look at his toes.
So we have another guy. He's on Facebook Live. Derek Craig. After the fallen took wives, where did they go? Did they hide and simply watch from a far place on Earth?
No, they were out in the open. They were partying. They were living. They were building cities. They were doing all kind of things. When we talk about where Lilith, when she took off from the Garden of Eden after she told Adam no, said the true name of God, flew up and flew over the walls of Eden. She went and dwelled where the fallen angels were at, not the children of them, but like Azazel and stuff was over there, and that would be in the Dead Sea area. They were actually living around the Dead Sea area, so she flew over there to go have protection from God's wrath and his angels, the 3 angels that he sent after Lilith. So they were hanging out over there, and then also the area would be Arba. Arba has a huge area where I believe it was called like Arba. I forget the actual area where they lived in, but you can to this day it's still actually the Golan Heights. I'm sorry, Golan Heights. The giants were always in that area forever, as far back as you can go. They were always in that area, and these are the areas surrounding Mount Hermon, which is pretty cool.
What of King Og?
King
Joe?
Og. I was gonna get to that.
Joe, do you have King Og?
Please talk about King Og. He's one of my favorite.
Know a little bit about him. So Og was again briefly mentioned, and most scholars ascribe Og to being one of the last Rephaim, right?
Right, correct.
Of that line. So you had all these giants throughout the land of Canaan, and to your point, they were interspersed. You had the Nephilim, you had the Anakim, and you did have the Rephaim, and they lived in the same fertile crescent that everyone else did, and they were fighting for land and fighting for water and fighting for places to plant crops. And
most of them were farmers.
What's that?
Most of them were farmers or herders.
Yeah, they were doing their thing. They
Yeah.
weren't, being all giant-y and just
Yeah, just killing everybody. You know, they're doing the whole
their
thing.
So then I believe it's Deuteronomy where you see that basically Yahweh turns Og over to the Israelites and says, "This is all yours. You can have whatever he has." I believe he was the king of Bashan, I think it was.
Yes.
And right, and he was again one of the last remnants of the Rephaim. And I think there was something in Deuteronomy as well that specifically talked about the size of his bed, how it was many
Right.
more cubits than a normal size bed, as if that's relevant to them getting exterminated. So yeah, you go into basically how Deuteronomy and then Joshua, talk about how these giants, and this is the first time you see the word giants in the Septuagint. And for those who don't know, the Septuagint is the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible or the Tanakh. And that's when they started translating the Hebrew words like Nephilim and Anakim into just the common gigantus in Greek. So that's what started a lot of the arguing amongst different scholars, saying, well, if they translated this into giant and this into giant, then it must all mean giants. But they were in Hebrew, they're separate terms, right? And they had separate meanings, and they were talking about specifically separate people. So, I'm not a big fan of more modern translations of things in general. The
Of
more you
course.
translate something, the
Yeah,
more you
lost
lose
in
its original
translation.
intent.
Right.
And it's when you translate from Hebrew, that gets expounded on 10 times over, right? Because Hebrew has so many extra meanings to it. I actually start learning biblical Hebrew next Wednesday. I start my class. So I'm super looking forward to
Cool.
that. That's going to be hard. But yeah, but once you start getting away from the original language that these books were written in, you start to just see sloppiness. And gigantus in Greek is one of those great examples of where they saw a word, they kind of didn't know what it meant, so they just put the word giant instead of it for everything, and it started to transpose a lot of the original Hebrew itself.
I got, just to go back to that question, I have 4 actual locations where they dwelled really quick. Arba, he dwelled in Hebron, one's called Kiriath Arba. Anak was in Bashan, or the Golan Heights. Rapha the giant was in Canaan, and Goliath was in Gath, just to answer that question for you specifically.
Joe, what books do you recommend to get more information on these giants?
Book of Giants.
So, I mean, in general, I think the most comprehensive text that talks about them, outside of the Pentateuch, is going to be the Books of Enoch. What that combined Books of Enoch. I'm usually partial to Joseph Lumpkin's translations of it. He has them all in one volume, and the translations are pretty decent. I read one. I'm not going to remember who the author is on purpose, but it was just crap. It was not a good translation. You could tell they took a lot of liberties with what they were talking about. But definitely Joseph Lumpkin's I've read, and it's not bad.
I can say that when I was doing my research when I was a long time ago, the most frustration I had is when they talk about Enoch. I think the most messed up translation was portals, path, doorways, windows, or gateways, and they just get just switched around per translator when he talks about the heavenly pathways and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, the author that I wasn't a fan of, I'm not going to name drop them, but again, Joseph Lumpkin, and I think he's written a lot, especially on the Apocrypha and things like that. I think he's got an Amazon page as well. So that's been my favorite so far, and it's the most benign, right? It's I'm taking the words as they are. I'm providing slight annotations, but I'm not just rewriting stuff to make it sound cool or exciting and stuff. And the other thing is that you have all these different fragments of books that we now call the Books of Enoch, which, like I said before, really aren't, right? They were all different scraps of stories that were merged together. A good chunk of them were found in Qumran. Some are found in Slavic, and the most complete versions are found in Ethiopic, which I find most interesting, right? So the Ethiopic Christian church is the only one that considers the Book of Enoch part of their canon. No other Christian sect in the world. I think the Ethiopians and the Eritreans.
And they've had it forever too. They never lost it. It was just part of their book the whole time.
Correct, exactly right. And they have a couple of other books that most traditional Christian sects would not consider canon
Right.
at all. And
That was because
so I
of
find it interesting.
that was because of Solomon. You know, he sent his little parade down there.
Well, yeah, and I think he married their queen, right?
He sure did. She was a
He
little
married a lot of
somebody.
people, yeah, he's a busy dude.
Yes,
got
he
around.
was. He sent his son down there too.
There's something
he
where
was-
El Mighty Mexican just wrote, interesting how there are 7 and 9 feet tall skeletons found under North American earthworks, and the Smithsonian came and took them all and kept it quiet as if there are people who don't want the public to know about giants.
Yeah. So when Smithsonian, anytime they cannot explain something, they label it magic/religion, and they put it in a box and they put it away because they can't tell a story, they can't talk about it. The most current one that they did find, which is current with the lore in the area with American Indians, there was a farmer farming bat guano out of a cave, and I think it was like 30 feet deep worth of bat guano. And eventually, once they got down to it, they found all these bones that were of giants, whole families. And they started talking about it in the area. It got kind of, hot topic. And the local Indians were like, yeah, we killed those guys. We killed them. We actually cornered them in that cave, and we lit the front of the cave on fire, and we shot a bunch of arrows. And kid you not, man, there are arrows in there. There are arrows in bones. And they killed them. And the local Indian tribe, which I cannot give you guys, the location of the tribe name, I do not remember. Maybe Joe knows. They killed these people, and they were blonde hair, red hair, tall people, blue eyes. And a lot of these people had axes that they would bring around. So these are the people we have talked about before that did the happy face smile across the continent of the European continent from the northern countries, and did a happy face smile right into China. So this is where you get the bearded men in China and stuff like that with the pointy hats, and the surgeries they did on their lungs. I mean, it's amazing stuff that they were doing way thousands of centuries ahead of their time. They had something called sand lung. When you breathe in so much sand, it fills your lung. They would actually remove the lung, wash it of sand, and put it back in the person, sew them up, and they lived. Crazy. Good stuff. I don't remember where that bat guano cave is at, but yeah, the Smithsonian came and took those bones, and they have pictures of them in the it was like 1800s. There's pictures in the newspaper. That's the only reason why we know about that today, is because of the newspaper.
Well, there's other areas, I believe, in Arkansas, the Chichesawa.
Tons of places all over.
And the Shawnee tribe also, where there were mounds, and they found giant skeletons there.
Mm-hmm.
But again, Smithsonian grabs them.
It's being written out of history.
Well, when it doesn't fit into the story,
Their timeline.
historians don't want to try to guess about it. So it's
unfortunate.
Yeah.
Our archaeological timeline is pretty damn off.
So let's ask some.
Well, and it keeps getting pushed further and further back, right?
Oh, for sure. That place in
it's-
Turkey.
Gobekli Tepe.
Yeah,
Oh,
man.
yeah,
that
that's my jam
smoked
right there.
everybody.
Yep.
Even
That's
the
my
ones who
jam.
wanted to rewrite it were like, whoa, that's even older than what we thought.
Well, that's
Yep.
always been the argument from Egyptologists, that their timeline has to be right because there's no other place that's 10,000 years old or older, and then
Sumer.
and then all of a sudden Gobekli Tepe shows
it's
up.
Sumer and
it's
stuff like that, yeah.
It's been
Well,
definitely
the interesting thing with Gobekli Tepe is they've only uncovered 3 or 4 mounds at the very top of the site. They're
Yeah,
and
they
then
buried it.
They've done ground imaging radar on those mounds, and there's definitely more structures underneath that had to have been created earlier, right?
Right.
Because
It's
they
like
built the new trap
34
on top.
floors, isn't it?
Something like that, yeah. So there's
Yeah.
way older stuff. They just haven't
Wow.
excavated
That's no
yet.
joke, man.
Yeah,
It's
and-
underground,
and the-
34 floors.
and what they've excavated already, they have absolutely identified pieces that are 10,000 years old.
yeah, they know this for a
Sure.
fact.
Yeah.
So that's one of the
So-
places I would love to go.
Michael Samuel on YouTube asked, "What do you think the esoteric meaning of the giants is? What are we supposed to learn from them?"
So, yeah, that's a great question. I was
Mhm.
actually staring at it on YouTube. So I think, as we were discussing before, my personal opinion is that it's that hybrid form, right, between the divine and between
Mhm.
mortal man.
It's that
You know,
bridge.
right, and some other religious systems, I guess you could call it, especially a lot of your Western culture ones, they always had those bridges between, you had that hybrid state. Look at the Egyptians as well. I mean, their gods were of mortal flesh, right? They could be
They
killed. They could be
walked,
hacked
right.
into 14 pieces.
Oh yeah,
They walked with
the miss a piece.
humans as well. So a lot of cultures had that in between state. So I think, and again, a lot of these cultures came up in the same area of the world, right? It's
Right.
wasn't that
Neighbors.
far away. So I think that there's a lot of synergy there between the story again of the giants and the Nephilim and how they were created and how they existed versus a lot of your, I guess, demigod or hybrid deity forms that you see in other cultures like the Babylonians and the Sumerians and the Egyptians, and the list goes on and on. It's not that different what you see in the Old Testament than what you see in a lot of other religious texts of the time. So I don't think it's a big stretch to say that you have this in between form that obviously wasn't the best for everything. So because obviously because we wrote the stories, right? So we have to win in the end. But I think it's very easy to make a connection between things like the Nephilim and the Watchers even too, because you have that state that's not divine but of divinity. And I know a lot of Masons talk about, I'm especially one of them, that we all have that spark of the divine in us. So maybe we're that next evolution, or we got it right or something like that. So that's what I take from it.
Rukon G, do you gentlemen believe there is a movement within the Judeo-Christian churches to suppress information in order to subject their followers to subjugation?
Yeah, I see that too. I was chewing on that question for a minute, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna answer as
Like a
politically
two-part.
correct as I can. So
Yes,
have
they
to be.
are suppressing.
Don't worry, because Mike will answer
Please.
it.
Yeah, I'll answer it
Not
too.
politically
no,
correct.
I'll give you a good answer. It'll just be PC. But so I'm definitely I definitely consider myself an esotericist. I definitely consider myself not a product of your traditional organized religion. I grew up Roman Catholic. I was an altar boy. I did the mass in Latin, so definitely did all that growing up. Stuff. But what I can say is that the first and second centuries churches looked way different than churches in the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth centuries going
Absolutely.
into the Dark Ages, right?
100%.
What church meant before Rome sponsored the religion and made it the state-sponsored religion of the entire empire was
Correct.
a drastic shift in how Christianity was being practiced before that time, right? You had community level churches, and you can see this in some of Paul's letters that were probably written around the time of Paul, as opposed to some that were probably written a little bit after. But you could see it in when a church was planted in a certain city, like Galatia or Corinth, things like that. There was a community aspect to church, and it made it really familial and really close, and that's how they practiced, as opposed to the state-sponsored Roman Christianity that you see later that built cathedrals and would punish you if you said something weird, and burned witches and things like that, and sold indulgences to go to heaven. So
Right.
very, very different. So
The tickets. Yeah.
to answer Iru's question, I think there has absolutely been in the past instances where that is certainly the case. I mean, they didn't call them the Dark Ages for nothing.
Yeah.
They called them the Dark Ages because there was no light, there was no knowledge, there was no nothing,
man.
and it was all owned by a single power structure in all of Europe.
And who would that
Right?
be?
That was the Roman Catholic
Oh,
Church.
there you go.
Yeah. So, and it wasn't until people started to get tired of that, or like, well, screw this,
Yeah.
that we started to kind of break out of that. And you start to see that in the Middle Ages and the feudal system where people started to take back control. So absolutely, I think that's 100% accurate. Do they still do it today? I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I've read Dan Brown books, so I know there's the secret
Right.
in the
There's
library
something,
and
a
stuff,
little something. It was more back in the day. Now it's so hard for them to do stuff like this. And I was just going to comment on that too. Subjugation. It's like subjugation to what level, Like I do believe the Christian churches or Judeo-Christian churches do suppress certain information because it is a story they want to be told in a certain manner. And if it's not aligning with that, anybody who's doing anything like that will will not adhere
It's
to
their
that.
perverted version of Jesus.
It's their version, whoever,
There's
or
my
whatever the story is.
non-PC.
Yeah, I'm just saying, whatever the story is, that there's a version that everybody's got their own version, and they're not going to like somebody else's version.
Yeah.
Well, I
but
think it's harder to make that argument about wide systems, and I'm not going
Right.
to get all weird.
yeah, I don't want to
conspiracy
get
theory
it.
on
Yeah,
you. In today's day and age, there's so many different flavors of Christianity,
absolutely.
right?
A
It's a
bazillion.
buffet.
Yeah,
that
it's 51
I
flavors,
think
man.
Yeah, it's hard for them to all sit at the table, get together, and say, what are we going to subjugate
Yeah.
today?
Or
That's
Council of
not happening,
Nicaea.
you know what I mean?
Right.
But again, before people could read, before people
The
were
book was
allowed
read to them.
read, it's absolutely possible that happened. That was the
Right,
big
right.
deal with the King James Bible. It was like, holy crap, you guys are writing it in the common tongue. Like, people are going to read it now and know all of our stuff. That was unheard of back then.
I would just say this:
So-
the subjugation is more of the people who don't want to ask questions for themselves. They're allowed. They're going along with it. So is it really subjugation? I don't know, because I think a lot of these people choose to go in. I like this structure. I like to fit into that, and it works for me. It works for those individuals. So I would say subjugation. It's a really hard term.
And yeah, and I don't get that sense myself when I'm still a practicing Christian. I call myself a recovering Catholic, jokingly.
Hey.
But
I was kicked out of the Catholic Church, so
but I look at faith in a different way. Yeah, you get together as a community because that's what community is. That's what the word church means, right?
Mm.
But everybody should still have a personal relationship with deity. Whether you're sitting in a big cathedral, or you're in a parking lot with lawn chairs and you're all celebrating together, or you're in a mosque, or you're in a synagogue. The fact that you're all together with kind of sort of the same ideals is great, but I still think you still have to engender that personal connection to divinity, because no one's going to tell you how your relationship with deity is except yourself. So
just to touch on a question over here, we have I am Baphomet. It's so funny every time I say that. I am Baphomet. If we take the Bible at its word, it said the sons of God took wives. Broad statement. Were there female Nephilim or just male? There actually were female giants. Arba had a wife, which I don't have on here. I think I'm missing a page here. But there is a... Is it on that one now?
Nope.
There is a... yes, there is his wife. So Arba's wife, which is like, it's Arba spelled Arbak or something like that with a Q. It has a Q on it. And that was his wife, and she was giant as well.
She hot.
I mean, they did produce all the rest of the Nephilim, so they were doing something right between the two. So, yeah, there were female ones. You do not hear about them quite often at all, because it's just the time period, stuff like that. But yes,
well,
there were female.
interestingly, I mean, there's always arguments about whether traditional angels, at least in Judeo-Christianity, had genders.
Correct.
Right?
We got Gabriel, correct? Gabriel's the big one that would flip here and there, and
or messengers of God, that they don't take on a gender role or
Right.
things like that. So were there male and female angels? I don't know. Maybe they had both. Maybe they were
Right.
lucky they could do what they wanted to do. And flip the script, but I
Right.
don't know. But there's a lot of cases where it's very gender neutral, especially in canonical books where they're just known as messenger, or and they don't get a pronoun, which I find interesting. So,
The Norse that I was looking up implied androgyny within a lot of the.
It's a lot of
the
androgynous
gods.
stuff that's
if you
going
think
on.
If you look back, Loki was he gave birth. He
Right.
gave birth to the world snake. So he was technically both.
Jormungand. Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
like, did he give birth to it, or did he create it? Is that what they're trying to mean? That he made,
No, it's
who knows?
specific to
Yeah,
giving
I know.
birth.
They got
So
some
he's
stuff.
Technically, the first hermaphrodite mentioned
Right.
in
Well,
in that lore.
we're gonna get into this, but when you read like the Lost Books of Eden, or the Pseudograph, or other stuff that Joe was talking about, other types of books, they refer to Adam and Lilith as being hermaphrodites, having both. Let them be in our image.
Well, they definitely refer to Adam as
Yes,
that archetypal Adam, that first
the first one, correct.
creation. They definitely refer to him in those other books as having both genders, right? And then the split came
Seth as
when-
well, correct?
Yep.
They-
And
mhm,
and the split came when Eve came forth from Adam. Right?
correct.
And then there were two, but that really gets into the masculine, feminine, sides of
Absolutely.
divinity and stuff.
That's a
which-
juicy topic right there.
Oh yeah, that's meat and potatoes right there. We can talk about that.
Oh,
all
you
day.
you are literally the only other person that dares to even speak about that with me. So I really appreciate you talking about that.
Nobody wants to talk.
I've had a
about it.
hard time,
Nobody
every
wants to
time I
touch it.
no, because little black balls roll out all of a sudden.
So, and I
You get
know,
blackballed
I know we're gonna,
places.
I know we're gonna touch on Esotericon in a little bit because that just
Oh.
happened. But
Actually,
one of
yeah.
the-
Can
Hey.
you
What is
talk about
that?
the
What-
Esotericon you guys put on?
yeah, totally. I was gonna mention as an aside, one of the presentations we did was Brother Adam Goldman, who is originally from California.
Oh,
Yeah, he did a talk on the sacred feminine and Freemasonry, which was absolutely awesome. Like instances of the sacred feminine in archetype religions and in the ritual and stuff. It was actually a pretty awesome presentation. So yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. So, Esotericon is a thing that few bros in Northern Virginia put together. It's John Ruark and Jason Richards from the Masonic Roundtable, and Brother Kevin Homan, who's another local, and myself. We a really quick story. We came back from Masonicon in Attleboro, Massachusetts. It was their second or third one. We've been going every year, and we came back down and we were like, man, this sucks. We need to do something like this down here because that was awesome. Like it was absolutely refreshing. It was phenomenal. And we were like, but let's do something different. Let's do something, like, what is it that we're not getting in our lodges? Because we're all probably cut from the same cloth. We all have the same ideas and the same likes. We're a little bit weird. And we're definitely into more of the esoteric, heady topics that have to do with the craft than most other people in our area. And we're like, well, screw it. Let's
So
put
motive
on
be,
a
yeah.
conference that if it was our dream conference, what would we like to hear? And we're like, well, cool. Let's call it Esotericon because Masonicon's taken, and we only want to talk. Like, we don't want to talk about green beans. We don't want to talk about, how to make your lodge more financially stable. Like, that's not what we cared about. Like,
We have
wanted to
stuff like
hear
that
about
already.
all the cool stuff. So yeah, so we put it together. We had our first one in 2019. We exceeded capacity in the building because we were stupid and we didn't know
Yes.
how to put a conference together that first year. But it was a fantastic time. And then 2020, we started selling tickets a few months before the lockdown. And around February, we had to pivot and say, holy crap, nobody's coming. We're going to do
Nope.
this online and virtually. So we had over 200 people attend virtually. So that was, and I'm going to be honest, it was a complete crap show. I'm being really gentle. I don't know if I can have potty mouth on this.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yes, you can,
Just-
yes.
Oh
just go
shit!
for it.
Awesome. Okay,
Shit.
cool.
There you go,
I've been
buddy.
biting my tongue this whole
Let it
time.
out.
Oh my God.
Cat is out.
Yeah, this is
So
a mature
thank you.
channel.
That's right.
yeah,
If you guys don't
no,
like
it
it, please change the channel.
It was a pure shit show. Honestly, it was a great conference, but we were losing our minds trying to figure out how to put this all together, and do it in real time. But so this year we decided early on, last year that hey, we'll probably do virtual again because it's still a global pandemic, and they literally opened things in Virginia 2 weeks before the event, and people were emailing us like, "Hey, let's meet in person." It's like we are not turning on a dime like that. Sorry, guys.
Yeah,
like,
you can't.
it's
It's
impossible.
just too much to do.
But we had almost 293 attendees, almost 300 this year. So I mean, the numbers keep going up and up and up, and it's literally just Masons or people that are interested in esoterics. It's not tiled; it's open to everybody. If you're a dude, a lady, a lizard person, we don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Cool. Specifically lizard people.
Yeah. And so yeah, and it's literally just bring us your esoteric topic and put it on for the world. And it's just such a great group of people. You're not getting your regular green bean Mason or your social club Mason, and not to say that they're bad people, but they're just not interested in this stuff, and that's okay because I get to hang out with 293 people who are into the same shit that I am.
Absolutely.
and have an awesome
Yep,
time.
absolutely.
That's awesome.
The
and
minds
it's,
that are all there in that building, or
yeah,
wherever they
and
meet.
that's what's been bumming us out was that very first year. We did it at my local lodge, and like I said, we blew out the capacity. We didn't know what we were doing. We're like, wow, there's way more people than we can fit in here. We need to start going outside. But we ended the day at 6, and we were there till almost midnight because people didn't want to leave. People were still having conversations in the hallway. People were sitting down with a cup of coffee and just talking the rest of the day. Like, We didn't plan
Hmm.
on serving them dinner, but we ended up ordering 40 pizzas just to feed all these people because they wouldn't leave and they wanted to talk and just be together. And we were like, this is the most amazing feeling ever. I can't wait to do this again. So, COVID aside, we're going into our 4th year, and we like to mix it up with speakers. We like to get a little bit of different mix. This year we had folks like Adam Goldman, who, like I said again, was a California Mason originally. Now he's a DC Mason. We had Don McAndrews, who's a Virginia Mason. He talked about the theories of Tim Wallace Murphy, like the Knight Templars and the royal bloodline and stuff like that. That was a great talk. And we had Chuck Dunning, who I'm sure you've heard of. He started us off with a contemplative meditation session. So getting to meditate to start the day with 290 other people, that was phenomenal.
Awesome.
He's big in contemplative masonry. And then we had Ben Williams, Rocky Mountain Mason, who also publishes the Esoteric Mason, if you've heard of that magazine.
I have.
He gave us a talk on the symbolism of the cornerstone, which sounds on paper totally boring, but it was super fascinating. It was all about star charts and the astrological symbolism of laying a cornerstone and things. Who else did we have? We had Ben Wallace from North Carolina. He talked about sacred spaces and what a sacred space is. And I know if I talk about a sacred space in my lodge, 90% of the people will not know what the hell I'm talking about.
Right.
So even though they're actually invoking a sacred space when they walk in the room, but they're not there for that. So we also had Williams and Adam and Ben and Mitch Horowitz was our keynote speaker. I know he's big in Cali.
Good guy. Met him at Mountain P Hall.
Talk. He gave a talk called Masonic Nation, basically how Freemasonry influenced the building of the United States of America.
The entire.
It was one of the most passionate talks I've seen him do. It was absolutely phenomenal.
That's a good talk. Yeah,
it was great. So that's our shtick. We're definitely the like I said, we're the fringe guys out here on the East Coast that like to talk about esoteric stuff, and some people follow along with us every year and do it. So we've already announced next year's. It's going to be June 11th, 2022. It will absolutely 1,000% be in person. We don't care what disease is floating around.
Right, we're over it.
Yeah, we're over it, and we'll probably do a virtual component too, because like I said, now that we're up to 300 people, I don't envision all 300 of them traveling. So we want to make it available to people online and stuff. But the primary goal is to have that egregore and have that vibe and be in person again and just share with one another and be with people that you love.
I think that's the reason. That's the main reason we didn't do Esotericon here in the West Coast 2020, because we just didn't want to have. We were doing Zoom meetings all year, and we were like, you know what, we're not going to do this because it just lessens the experience. The same thing that happened over there, where you had people just hanging around having talks and just enjoying their time, listening to the lectures. We had that same experience here in 2019.
Yeah.
It was a great event. We loved it. All the lecturers that came through. It was awesome. So, for those of you guys listening, we have an Esotericon in the East Coast with Brother Joe Martinez, and you have an Esotericon over here in the West Coast with us. So we are lucky to have Brother Joe Martinez. He's going to be one of our keynote speakers at our Esotericon in 2022, May of 2022. So be on the lookout for that.
Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah. Now you know.
Now you know, buddy.
We just kidnapped you.
So be ready to party. We're gonna have a good time. It's gonna be fun. We like to put on a nice production, and we would love to work with you guys in the future. Maybe somewhere in Midway, maybe Colorado, maybe Texas.
We'll find somewhere.
Know. But as we grow,
I'll try and get a quorum together and do that.
Yeah.
But, no, you West Coast guys definitely up it on the production value.
Thank you.
Hey Joe, just to let you know, the theater here that you'll be speaking in seats 800. just to let you know. So.
All right. So yeah, we have two different Esotericons. One on the East Coast, one here on the West Coast. And I suggest you see them both. If you have the means to do so, go to each one, because
they both
you're gonna
offer
have fun.
multiple.
And if you're on
things.
the East Coast, go check them out. Make the trip. Get out there. It's worth it.
It's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting as well. Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, all I was going to say was I know people can't travel, and that's why. To your point, we were torn. We were like, people are sick of Zoom. I mean, we started Refracted Light a week after the global pandemic, and now it's got over 4,000 people. It's got content all the time, and it's just an open place for Masons and non-Masons to share education, right? But it's exploded into I'm on Zoom 3 or 4 nights a week.
Right.
And to your point, we thought people were going to get Zoom fatigue, and we were like, I don't know how many people are going to come because people are tired of Zoom. But that Zoom webinar was packed all day long, and people did not leave.
Well, we do plan a live stream all of our lectures and probably our workshops, because we're gonna have workshops as well. So
awesome.
So it should be a fun show, and you guys need to make it out. And we're glad to have you, Joe. We appreciate you very much. Not only for
thanks for
being on this show, but coming.
I'm going to be there. So.
Thank you very much. You're going to be here.
You will be here. You will.
So let's get back to a couple questions that we have here online.
Please.
So the presentation on sacred spaces was one of my favorites. That was from I Am Baphomet on Twitter. So he was actually listening on Twitch. Yeah, he was actually listening to one of those presentations.
So I don't know who that is because I didn't have anybody register as Baphomet on Zoom. So I'm so glad that you liked it. Yeah, Ben Wallace is a fantastic esoteric Mason. He's the one, if you brothers are not familiar, he's the one who helped start the Middle Chamber program out in North Carolina.
Oh,
cool.
And what that is it's basically a Grand Lodge sponsored education program that's all esoteric. And when you hear the word Grand Lodge sponsored, people's eyes go like,
yes,
holy crap,
yeah, right,
you know, because it's unheard of.
We do work with our Grand Lodge over here.
What's that?
We do work with Grand Lodge as much as we can.
You're so lucky.
We have to, you know.
Yeah, I guess so, if you say so.
Well, we like to work with them. They've been very interested in the work that we're doing.
I'm a member of, I'm not going to poo-poo a single jurisdiction. I'm a member in Virginia, where my home lodge is. I'm also a member in Washington, D.C., and I'm a member of the Esoteric Lodge in Washington, D.C., Benjamin B. French. It's a TO lodge. We do TO things. That's my jam.
So if I went out there, you're going to give me a tour?
Absolutely.
Okay, he said it live, too.
When stuff opens up again, DC's like Chicago and New York City. Like everything's still kind of locked down a little bit. But out here in Virginia, if you're wearing a mask, people look at you funny. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah,
it's Virginia.
Yeah, I'm in a little bit of, like, 5 miles away from me is farm, so we're kind of a little bit rural. So yeah, it's the minority that are still wearing masks and stuff. But no judgment here. But DC is still pretty restrictive when it comes to going to places and things like that. The House of the Temple just reopened last week.
That's where I want to go.
Yeah,
the Hoyos and stuff, right?
Phenomenal. Yeah. Art de Hoyos is there every day. If you
want a tour,
what's that?
I want a tour.
Well, maybe you should go talk to Art, man.
I'm going to. I may be going out there maybe early July.
Good.
Well, come on.
So Joe, I Am Baphomet said, tell Joe it's Lucas.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, bada bing. Forget about it.
Good bro, absolutely. Yeah, no, Ben's back to Ben's talk, but yeah, so Ben helped a bunch of brothers kick off Esoteric Masonry in North Carolina. They're doing a phenomenal job. Their last Grandmaster, who also, his name is Sean Bradshaw, he spoke at Esotericon 2020. Big Esoteric Mason, so he was all for supporting lodges doing that, and getting into it. As long as, and his big thing was, which I thought was beautiful, and I thought it was so relevant and so important, was his piece of advice to everybody that wanted to get into this stuff and start to dip their toe in being an esoteric Mason was, and he would say this with the nicest smile on his face, he would say, always keep it in the ritual. It's like, if you tie it to the ritual, you're good. If you start getting off on this off the wall shit, then you're going to lose people. And you know what? At the end of the day, he's absolutely right. You can talk about some of this really fringe stuff as long as you frame it within the ritual, or at least the purpose of initiation, right? Because I think that's why we're all here.
Right. Yeah.
And it really is good common sense wisdom to impart.
I think you guys on the East Coast have a little bit more freedom, I would say, to talk about stuff, because you guys have a lot of stuff out there. Out here, it's a little more cut and dry.
I would disagree with you. Just having been to some of your lodges. Yeah,
I think it's the other way around.
You think it's the other way around?
Because
man, you guys have so much cool stuff out there and opportunities.
But none of it's sponsored by anybody. We do this on our own because we don't care. At the end of the day.
Yeah.
But we're not getting money from our lodges. We're
not nothing like that.
Grand Lodge. It's all us. You know what I mean? And we have to ride that line very finely,
Mhm.
and not
Indeed.
number one, piss anybody off, and number two, not do anything that's going to get us in trouble. But that's why, I mean, if you didn't notice, this last year's Esotericon, we started to really market it as this is an esoteric conference who just happens to have lots of Freemasons at it. But we're not marketing ourselves as Masonic because we don't want to be
Mhm.
tied to any single body. And
Exactly.
the other big
That's what
thing
we're
is we don't
doing
want,
as
we don't
well.
want to
feel
be
the
told what
same.
to do. That's the
Yeah.
big thing is you can't tell us what to do. It's not your show.
Yep.
Yep.
So
We have that in
Also,
place.
the way I look at it is it's not. There's a sprinkle of masonry, but it's for all paths. It's for I believe Esotericon should be for all paths. Whatever path you practice, come on down and share your ideas. Share with the
Yeah.
people that are there and talk to them and learn other paths.
The
It's a place-
Esotericon that we had Golden Dawn, we had OTO, we had OTA, we had
that's awesome.
witchcraft, we have various Wicca to traditional witchcraft, we had Hermeticism, we had all kind of
We had
wonderful, wonderful things there.
We also had Santeria.
We had all kind of
Yeah.
stuff,
We had,
so
we had a lot of
Yeah, I've been around that. Yeah.
Los Angeles is home to a smorgasbord of esotericism. So we have everybody come down, and we want to represent everybody that has a path or a teaching or something like that. So that way, basically, we bridge that gap between like a YouTube or something funny because we're on YouTube and stuff like that. But to bridge that gap, so people can come out and touch something that's tangible and speak with a professional that does it for a living.
And we were fortunate that we too had some really cool Masons who were into the esoteric stuff and the magic
for sure,
community and stuff like that. So, our some of our speakers that we had here were guys that are Masons, but we're not specifically, whatever Masonic talk that they were kind of tying into it, wasn't specifically targeted towards Masons. It was more targeted towards an esoteric community. So it was.
And that's the way to go, brother, because I think
Mhm.
that, to think that Freemasonry is the only quote unquote path to enlightenment, I mean,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
out of your mind,
You're-
right? There's
yeah,
many
you're
paths.
Right, for
There's
sure.
many different roads up to the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And, we're one. We're not the end all be all.
No.
Especially by some of our past actions. We can't claim that we're the end all be all, right? Because
Correct.
we've done dumb shit before in the past.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But there are many other schools of thought and many other esoteric schools of knowledge that impart similar lessons, and they all use kind of sort of the same structure, right? You're using initiation as a way to
Educate.
teach you how to be that better person, right? And it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be Freemasonry. And in some places it shouldn't be Freemasonry, right? It may not be for everybody.
Right.
But if you have a community that's open and shares all those ideas, it makes all of those organizations better at the end.
So Michael Samu just posted, I was told to remove my Baphomet decal on my vehicle or demit from Yucca Valley Lodge. I think masonry is too strict in general.
That's unfortunate because nobody should tell you what you can or cannot believe in or have. I mean, your vehicle is not driving inside the temple. I mean, I don't understand why they can do that. I would actually fight that. Believe you me, Michael Samu, I've had my obstacles on just speaking or and you can't have somebody tell you can't be here because of your belief. That's illegal. I think statewide, and most likely it's extremely un-Masonic. You shouldn't be able to say that. Like, I don't want you here in this lodge because you believe in something. That's horribly wrong. And I don't know what took place there. I'm just saying a general thing that should be kind of looked at, and I would bring that up.
Honestly,
So Michael, don't bring those people to my house because my daughter runs around in a Baphomet t-shirt. all the time.
Right. I mean, yeah.
That was given to her by a Mason. So
Wow.
Right. Yeah.
when we had the first Esotericon, you guys know Carlos Hernandez from Ascended
Oh,
Masters?
yeah.
Yes.
I said a master's.
He was a vendor there, and my daughter was
Carl
there. 'cause
Hearn.
Carl Hearn, because we had the Rainbow Girls helping out, and my daughter, who is 16 years old, super deep thinker. If she doesn't join an esoteric group when she turns 18, I'll be completely surprised because that's just her bag. You know what I mean? She even spoke at Esotericon last year. And she was loving all the stuff that Carlos had on the table. Oh, I love this, I love that, I want this, I want that. And Carlos's wife was there, and she's a hard salesperson because she's like, you know, you want to get your daughter this and you want to get your. I was like, damn it, fine. So I mean, I spent all this money on buying my daughter a bunch of crap from Carlos. So she walks out with like, a bushel full of stuff. And she runs around wearing all her shirts all day long.
Yeah,
she's
more power
one
to
of
her.
the few girls in this area that actually knows what all that stuff means. So
Yeah. Unfortunately, Baphomet's being used for a lot of things that it was never intended to be used for, and that drives me freaking nuts. Yeah. I just want to just go back to that quick question where you said, from they asked you to demit or anything like that. Sometimes you have to go through things to realize that a lodge is not meant for you. That specific lodge, you need to move around. You need to find where your home should be. Search out other lodges, man. Believe me.
This is exactly why I tell people who ask me about joining Masonry, you need to check out 2 or 3 lodges because you're going to find that
or more.
And if this is the type of topics that you want to talk about,
find like-minded
then
people.
you have to find the like-minded lodges that are okay with it. And there's a lot of them here in LA. Unfortunately, you're out in Yucca Valley, so
there's not too many.
And you know what's funny is I thought Yucca Valley was pretty cool like that, man.
I don't know.
They sounded like they were very into the esoterics, and I'm sorry that you had to go through that. But sometimes you just got to look at people and just tell them, hey, you know what? Fuck you.
You know, sometimes too, just to say
in the most friendly manner.
Yeah.
It could be that person who told you that. It was only that person, and maybe nobody was backing them up. So if you bring that to the table, I would actually bring that up at a stated meeting. I would stand up and say, this person here told me this. Is this what everybody thinks here? And if they go, yeah, we told them to go say that. I mean, that gives you your answer right there. You don't need to think about it.
You don't even want to be around those kind of people.
I mean, I would demit.
Yeah, I wouldn't be there.
Right. I mean, you want to demit before you get blackballed.
James got blackballed. In case you didn't know, it was funny to watch.
Oh man, you get blackballed, and then Esotericon blows up, and then you get a better show, better plays. Everything just comes to fruition because
the
it was
right lodge,
the right thing to do,
the right people. Michael
know,
Samu says, "I'm an OC now. Maybe Hermes Lodge. Well, maybe you should come join us and come hang out with us.
We are only accepting workers. We need people who come here who want to actually be hands-on, who want to be here.
Catch.
Right.
Yep.
We're not a pancake lodge.
No, we're
No
not
pancake masons. And we're not Minos. You guys know what Minos is? A Minos Mason?
Mason in name only.
Bam! Man, this guy Joe's going to fit in perfectly over here.
He sure is.
We can't wait to corrupt you more, Joe, when you come over here, because you've already
become best friends.
You're already there.
I'm screwed already.
we're going to Sparta you into the pit of just like, you'll be like, Joe, look at that. For Hermes. Bam.
Yeah. Hey, that's
right.
That's what makes
it being
cool.
blackballed is not the end. It's the beginning. Trust me. You're doing something right, probably.
So, Odalis de la Rosa, I look at the esoteric world and knowledge to be minimal due to it just being based on one-sided history. Correct. That's why it's called his story.
I don't know about that question. I would say if you subscribe to a single esoteric teaching and you put blinders on and shut yourself off to everything else, maybe that's right. But I mean, I would say more of your esoteric teachings, and we're throwing this word around like it's popcorn, right? But in general, esoteric for me probably opens up more doors to history than anything else.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
More questions.
Again, I think, but it's a dangerous road to go down, right? Like if you got, and I'm not poo-pooing him in any way. He is one of my favorites. I have tons of his books on my shelves. But if you got guys that are like super into Manly P. Hall, that's all they know. Believe me, I'm a Manly P. Hall fanatic. But if that's all they know and they just spout off Manly P. Hall sayings and quotes and stuff like that, and they know nothing else, and they're just regurgitating Manly,
correct,
and they're kind of closing themselves off to everything else that's out there.
Yeah.
Or the allegories within, because Manly P. Hall was really allegorical. A lot of people take his work literally, and it's like, no, man, it's literally on par with parables in the Bible. That's how you got to read Manly P. Hall. And if you're not, then you're doing something wrong.
Right.
But I think if you just put blinders on, and you get that with a lot of fundamentalists, right?
Yeah,
blinders
you can't
on
have
and
those
close
on.
yourself off. Then, then Odalis's point makes sense.
You
and
have
maybe
to
I'm
look at
reading
it
the
all.
question wrong.
You have to look at the whole. I believe what he's saying is just one-sided. There's just one story. And say, for instance, if it was just the Bible stating these historical facts, then that's the only story we have, when we know that there's other sides to the stories. Which is why when we look at the three main religions, they have the same story, just told three different ways.
Correct. And it's all like, I'm better than you. No, I'm better. And they're all, hitting each other like little kids, It's unfortunate.
Rukon G is for Masons who have strayed far from their lodge. How can we connect with other lodges? I myself have sent emails and such, but how can we as Masons at large make time to find fellowship? That's a really good question.
It's a hard one to answer.
But there are groups. Mm-hmm. There are groups and on Facebook. There are groups
Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Like we're a group, and you could follow us, and we could have these conversations. And we do meet, and we also put on events such as Esotericon. So we would love for all of you to join us whenever you guys can. But for the local Masons, that is one where you're going to have to go to a couple lodges and ask around and talk to the people and see what they're into and if you guys vibe,
Unfortunately, you have to just sit there and really filter through that one by one. I mean, there's no real way, because a lot of these times you may find like-minded people in a lodge, but that lodge doesn't condone what they speak about.
Well, and the thing is that I'm thinking of specifically within our area, so I don't know what it's like for him in his area, but if you start looking at lodges giving esoteric talks or a subject matter, they're going to do a Zoom or whatever, they're going to have a special speaker come to their lodge. The people that are interested in that particular subject are going to be there. And you might have a bunch of differently minded people in that lodge, but they won't be there for that event. So go to those type events, or if you see an event or you see a Zoom or just something that sparks your interest, go check out that event at that lodge, because chances are you're going to find find brothers at that lodge, and you're probably going to find the same brothers at that lodge that go to all of those events at all of the different lodges all around. Because
that's where you have your
seen
Step Brothers moment.
So I will tell you that, I travel the lecture circuit out here in Los Angeles, once before COVID, and you start seeing the same people. So if that's if it's something you want to do is find other people that are like-minded, you need to go, like you're talking about, travel the lecture circuit and go find topics that, you find hard to talk about with other people, and you'll find like-minded people. I love the lecture circuit. I love seeing. I start seeing the same people. I will literally walk up to them. I've seen you 5 times this week. Who are you? Why are you here? Why are we going to the same? I'm friends today.
Lectures 5 times a week, bro.
I did at one point. Yeah.
Wow.
I did. It was Manly P. Hall, Besson Hall, at Dr. Heller.
Yeah, I was just going to say we made so many friends, brothers, and not just from hitting those lectures.
Correct. I kidnapped Brian
and stuff.
PRS. Yeah, right. Philosophical Research Society, Manly P. Hall.
And that's those.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice you see them 5 different times at 5 different sessions, but those are the people that you're going to gravitate towards and end up making those lifelong relationships with. It's not going to be
done for sure.
Surface bullshit relationship. You know
Absolutely.
I see the same people, when I'm doing a talk on refracted light, or I'm doing a talk for a lodge in Massachusetts or in Chicago or what have you. I see the same people jump on. I'm like, but that's awesome, because I know that person. I love that person with all my heart. We have a rapport with each other, and it's not that surface level bullshit. That's not what I'm here for. That's not why I go to lodge. That's not why I stay away from my kids 2 or 3 nights a week. You know what I mean? I don't do that for that. I do that to engender real relationships that actually make myself better. So you're absolutely right. But I mean, you hit it on the head, Michael, with get out there and just travel every single lodge. You could have 3 lodges in a 1 mile radius. They're all going to have different personalities,
vastly
different cultures,
vastly different
cultures.
And we say the same thing to candidates, people that knock on our door just because they live in the same town as our lodge. They're like, you know what? There's a lodge 2 miles down that way. There's a lodge 3 miles down that way. I want you to go visit those lodges, check them all out, and if you're still interested, come back here. We've never not had one person not come back to our lodge. But we tell them, we're like, there's different types of Masons and different types of Masonry. If this isn't your bag, or we're scaring the shit out of you, go somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah, there's the pancake Masons. You go eat pancakes.
Right. Great breakfasts.
You know, you can have spaghetti dinners, all that cool
Spaghetti
stuff.
Somebody
man.
said something about the great secret was green bean pancakes.
You know,
I've never had them myself.
Can you kick that person off the Twitch stream?
Right. I'm okay. I'm not gonna.
I think you know.
I want to
huh?
pass.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So in short, yes, check out several different lodges. Do some research around the area, and go to events like Ron said, and that's where you're going to meet your people. And then when you meet your people, you're going to feel like, wow, I've waited too long for this.
You're gonna feel a lot better. That's for sure.
Okay,
Oh,
so
man.
man beast within, pi duality, polarity, torus, fields and sacred geometry, frequencies, electricity and magnetism are the ways of the universe.
That's a mouthful.
Wow.
He's
Yeah,
just
that's-
throwing
I'm
it all
not-
out
I
there.
mean, you just
shot it out,
I'm not-
shot at me, boom.
I'm not touching that Wikipedia article of a comment there. So
that is
Like
crazy. You
90
need thesaurus
90
there.
I like this guy.
I like them too. So, do you have anything else to add, Joe? Do you have anything else you want to talk about, or there's anything else that you want to bring up in the future that you have going on?
no, just I would say definitely guys definitely get on the Masonic conferences group. I know Robert Johnson from Wentz Game is starting a website called MasonicConferences.com because 2022 is going to be an insane year for conferences.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The original Masonicon, they're moving to New Hampshire. We're having Esotericon. Kansas is having a Masonicon. Chicago
Wow.
is going to be back next year. Texas is doing one.
The way of the
It's going
future.
to be a whirlwind. So definitely reach out to them and get your stuff up there because everybody's coordinated. Oh, and South Pasadena Masonic Lodge, they're doing theirs again.
Oh,
next year.
Dago and the guys at
Doggo
South
and
Pass,
them,
right
huh?
on.
Yeah.
Old
So
South Pass.
it's going to be crazy next year. So definitely, jump on the bandwagon and so we can all get organized. Because last thing we want to do is crap in each other's cornflakes.
No.
So,
That is true.
Because it
no,
makes
this is-
cornflakes worse.
Indeed. But no, this was really fun. Thank you for having me tonight. Thank you for letting me be candid. If you could tell, I'm a very subtle person and I don't tell you what I think.
Very quiet.
But no, this was an absolute blast. This was super fun.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to meet you guys in person.
Same here, brother.
Same
We
here,
greatly
man.
appreciate you, and we look forward to the future, my friend.
Future is limitless.
Yeah.
Till you die.
Until then we go on, right? Yeah.
So to add on to what he was talking about Dago, and Dago and South Pass, they post these illumination lectures that happen in South Pasadena Lodge. I don't know if they're going to start them up again. I hope they do.
I'm
But
sure
if
they
you
will.
do have a chance to go to any of those
They are.
lectures,
Yeah.
I suggest you go to
Always good.
them.
Always good.
That's where you're going to find your people.
Yeah. We've met several of our friends like Kristen, just
Robert
cruising.
Safari.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a
All
bunch
kind
of
of
brothers
people.
that,
Yep.
friends that go out there, and we just have a good time listening. Like the last one that we went to was with Mitch Horowitz.
Yeah, we spoke.
That
We
was
spoke.
awesome.
Spoke to Mitch.
Right.
Hung out with him.
Yeah,
Right, right.
that guy
Mitch is a good guy.
I love the way he lectures. He's the best at it. From what I've seen right now out there,
He's it.
He's it. He's
He's
the
it
way
right
he
now.
speaks and how much passion comes out of him.
Yeah.
You know. The lectures begin September at South Pasadena.
Well, there you
Sweet.
go. Look at that. Somebody
Yeah.
Ruff Ashlar knew.
All right.
Thank you,
so
Ruff Ashlar 357.
I want to say thank you to Mr. Brother Joe Martinez, and we look forward to meeting you again. And does anybody else have anything to bring to the table?
If I can jump in really quick
Yes.
before you guys do your outros and all that, I just want
Go
to say
for it.
thank you again to all the viewers.
Thank you.
And Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. Something that you can do if you specifically jump into Twitch, which is why we do push that. I Am Baphomet did it, and we thank you very much. Is you can actually host the show on your own channel while you're watching it.
What?
So if you actually have a following on your Twitch, like you didn't just create it specifically to watch us, you have a following, you think that they may enjoy what we are talking about, you can host the show and it'll get them out to your people as well, just kind of helping us out, getting more views and stuff like that. So
Wow.
we
Thank
do
you.
appreciate that.
We do appreciate that
Very much so.
James, do you have anything else to say?
Seek, read, look for more, man. There's more out there. Get out of the box. Don't live in a box.
Ronnie?
Nope.
And that'll be us, and that'll be all. And thank you, and we'll see you next Thursday.
See you
Thank you,
next
everybody.
week. Thanks.
Later, guys.
Laters.